Reverend Stephen Pecco, and I'm with Trinity Episcopal Church in beautiful Apalachicola, Florida. And this is my sermon for Sunday, October 1st, 2023. Unless you know the Gospel of Matthew very well, you might have missed the context of the passage that you heard today in church. See, the day before, to say Jesus has caused a stir is a bit of an understatement. He enters Jerusalem on a donkey with the crowds cheering, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord," and "Hosanna to the Son of David." The city, it's in turmoil. And Jesus, his presence stirs them up even more as he enters the temple, and he drives out those doing business there, overturns the tables of those participating in the economy of man and not the divinity of God. Jesus then retreats overnight to Bethany, which is an area a couple of miles to the east of Jerusalem. It's on the eastern slope of the Mount of Olives. And that's where Mary, Martha, and Lazarus live, as a point of context. And so this gospel passage from today, this covers the next day when Jesus returns to the temple in Jerusalem. And the Jewish leaders are waiting for him. And they think they're going to finally corner him by getting him to admit the source of his authority. If Jesus says, "My authority comes through humans," well, that undercuts his ministry. And if he says, "My authority comes from the divine," he claims messianic status. And that opens the door to charges of sedition. So the Sanhedrin, they get the first strike. But Jesus immediately hits them back with a question. In a way, Jesus is turning the tables, much like he did with his disciples, when he asked them, "Who do people say that I am?" Followed by, "But who do you say that I am?" See, this set of questions that Jesus then asks the Jewish leaders in our gospel message today, what he is saying to them, I'm paraphrasing, "I know who I am, but who do you say that I am?" This is a counter par excellence. See, in sword fighting or fencing, you parry an opponent's swing when they come in at you, not when they retract. Because if you counter when they pull back, when they're retracting, one of two things has happened. You're countering because you've been hit, or you're countering to something that was totally missed. Either way, countering that pulling back really doesn't serve any purpose. So Jesus parries that swing as they come in, meeting the force of their questions with an equalizing force, one that puts them, the Jewish leaders, immediately on the defensive. If they answer that John's baptism comes from heaven, it means they endorse Jesus. And if they answer John's baptism comes from earth, that's going to send the populace into a tizzy because they view John as a prophet. And so the Jewish leaders choose the third option, ignorance and blindness, head in the sand. And this negates the authority that they were trying so hard to claim. And Jesus doesn't let up even when it's disguised as one of the most simplest and shortest parables of them all. This parable is one that lays bare the hypocrisy of the Jewish leaders who have taught to always follow and live by God's laws. Yet they voice their approval of the son in the parable that walked away. See, their tacit approval of the behaviors that are unlike theirs makes them hypocrites. Now, there are many, many sermons that one can get from this passage. But I want to focus on this parable of the two sons because I think it has a pastoral element that everyone can benefit from hearing. Now, if you're someone who's always had it all together, always said and did the right thing, what I'm about to say is not going to land with you. But if you're someone who's made mistakes, who said and did things you're not proud of, someone who lives with regret, guilt, and shame at times that you don't know how you're ever going to get rid of, I've got a message for you. Let it go. Let it go. I know you're tired of having to think ahead of what to say, what to think, what to do, just so you can keep things trucking along. I did that for 33 years. Now everybody, at least if you're 33 years old, have something that's lasted 33 years. So I know you can contextualize what that length of time means in your life. It might mean the amount of time that you worked at a company. It might be the length of your relationship. It could be any number of things. Now, I heard a call to the priesthood at age 16 when I was on a weekend retreat to St. Joseph's Abbey in St. Benedict, Louisiana, which is north of Covington, which is just above New Orleans. But I avoided that call. I refused to answer that phone when God rang. And I'll admit that part of that was due to me not feeling worthy enough to grab hold of the Holy Spirit that was trying to make its presence known in my life. And I did that for 33 years. In preparing for coming here to Trinity in this past spring, I looked back at when that call, that first call, bubbled up at different points in my life between age 16 and now. And I was astounded at the pattern. It was separated by 11 years. Can't make this stuff up. In year 11, that is when I was age 27, the call returned. But I was married with 3 kids, and I said, nah, it's not time. 11 years later, in the 22nd year after the call, it resurfaced. And I was embedded in a life that took everything for me to just get by. And so I couldn't see how that would work. But it was that third time, 11 years later, in the 33rd year, when I was 49 years old, that I finally had the courage to say, yes, Lord. Like the first son in the parable, I changed my mind and went. But it took me 33 years to realize what God was asking was not for a perfect person. He was asking for me. It took me 33 years to filter my experiences and begin to see that God was forming me all that time to be the person that I was, that I became, and who I am today. It took me 33 years to know we have a loving and patient God who sits with us even when we lose, even when we're called to task, even when bad things happen to good people, even at the times that it's hard to tell God and the devil apart. So with an extra 3 years tacked on for seminary, I can finally, totally, unabashedly stand before God after 36 years and say, here am I, Lord. Send me. See, it took me all that time to realize God was present in my life. He didn't cause the bad things to happen. And most of the time, my prayers weren't answered in the way that I wanted them answered. But I know that God's love parries our swing of doubt and defensiveness every day. God stands fast in the brake to stop the tide, even when we're tempted to think, there's no God here, not in this hospital ward, not in this courtroom, not in this emptiness. God hears our pain and rolls away that stone in front of the tomb that we've made for ourselves. Our call, your call, is to change your heart and your mind, to hold fast to God and walk with him as he's been walking with you all this time. Even when we say, I will not go, God's hand is always outstretched and it's open, just waiting for you to grab a hold of it.